After my husband cancelled our marriage registration 66 times, I decided to stop waiting. On the morning of our scheduled marriage registration, I was stood up by John Anderson outside the county clerk's office. He told me, "Ting ting, this is Emily Harris' first surgery. I'm worried, so let's go tomorrow instead. We've been planning the wedding ceremony for 5 years, and this was the 66th time John Anderson unilaterally cancelled our marriage registration, every time because of Emily Harris. Since he was always busy, it seemed unnecessary to get the marriage certificate. So, I picked up my studies again and went abroad for further education, and I met like-minded people along the way. But just when we were about to enter the marriage hall, John Anderson chased after me. Wife, when are we going to get the certificate? Outside the county clerk's office. John Anderson and I were about to go in to get the marriage certificate. Before we even got inside, his phone rang. John Anderson, I'm scared. Some relatives are causing a scene at the St. Joseph's Medical Center. From the phone, I could faintly hear loud arguing, a man's angry voice, and a woman crying. I got closer and heard clearly what Emily Harris said to John Anderson. She, don't be scared, I'll drive back immediately. He comforted Emily Harris softly, ignoring my displeased expression. Without even saying goodbye, he turned around and walked away. John Anderson, we're already at the county clerk's office. Can't we just get the certificate first? Emily Harris is at the St. Joseph's Medical Center. With relatives causing trouble, she can call security and stay away from them. She'll be fine. I shouted at him. John Anderson turned and glared at me. Tina Scott, how can you say that? Don't you know how serious it is when relatives cause trouble? You've heard the news about relatives stabbing the lead surgeon. You don't care at all, and now you're stopping me from going back. You've never been a doctor. You don't understand our pain. I was silent for a moment. Do you really have to go back now? This is the 66th time we've had to cancel our marriage registration. At that moment, Emily Harris overheard our conversation on the phone, and apologized in a guilty tone. John Anderson, I didn't know you and your wife were at the county clerk's office. I'm so sorry for calling. Why don't you go ahead and get the certificate with your wife? I can handle being alone at the St. Joseph's Medical Center. Her words only fueled John Anderson's pity for her even more. We can get the certificate anytime. Right now, your situation is more important. I'll decide when we get it. After comforting Emily Harris for a while, he looked at me and said coldly, Tina Scott, can't you be more understanding? If you keep acting unreasonable, then let's not get the certificate at all. With that, he turned and opened the car door, driving off without a second glance. I stood there, watching him leave. I gave a self-deprecating smile. Yes, every time we were about to get the certificate, John Anderson always had something come up, and it always had to do with Emily Harris. Now, he even spoke harshly to me for Emily Harris' sake. John Anderson said I didn't understand the pain of being a doctor, but that was clearly a jab at me. How could I not understand? I used to be an excellent medical student. I could have gone abroad to study and become a top surgeon. However, just before I was to go abroad, John Anderson fell seriously ill, and I gave up my chance to take care of him. I gave up my career, and my love for surgery. But John Anderson had forgotten all of that. 5 years of marriage, and we still hadn't even gotten the certificate. After 5 years of failed attempts, maybe it really wasn't necessary to get it anymore. I contacted my former mentor and told him I planned to return to my studies. He was so excited, he could barely speak. Good girl, you finally figured it out. You've got a good memory, and your skills with the scalpel are steady. You were always a natural to be a doctor. When you gave up going abroad to marry, it was such a waste. I'm here abroad studying now. Pack up, come over soon and join me, I promised. And after hanging up the phone, I started looking up the visa process. Just as I finished, there was a knock at the door. I went to open it. John Anderson was standing at the door, with a pale-faced Emily Harris behind him. Ting ting, why did you lock the door? I couldn't get in earlier. John Anderson's tone was full of reproach, without any consideration for my feelings. I looked at him calmly. You're busy working, and I'm home alone most of the time. When something happens and I can't reach you, I lock the door. I was worried about my safety. I thought saying this might make John Anderson feel guilty. But instead, he scoffed. There's nothing dangerous in broad daylight. You're just overthinking it. Emily Harris, standing behind John Anderson, retorted unhappily. John Anderson, how can you say that to your wife? She might not be the prettiest, but she's still a woman. I glanced at Emily Harris and asked John Anderson, why did you bring her to our house? At that, John Anderson's tone softened. She was frightened today. She's a girl living alone in the city without a sense of security. I thought I'd bring her here for a meal. Now Emily Harris is my guest. Don't overthink it. I gave a short, stepped aside. I don't mind. Come in. It was almost time for dinner, so I went into the kitchen to prepare the meal. John Anderson followed me in, and without looking up, he said, "You don't need to cook today. I'll cook." I bought groceries on my way back, and Emily Harris wanted to try my cooking. I promised her a long time ago. John Anderson's words stirred some waves in my heart. We'd lived together for 5 years, and in all that time, John Anderson had cooked for me only a handful of times. Even on our wedding ceremony anniversary, he only bought a gift and didn't even have time to be with me. I suddenly felt a bit ridiculous. John Anderson, have you ever thought about how in all the time we've lived together, you've hardly ever cooked for me? But now, with Emily Harris here, you're cooking. Have you thought about how I feel? John Anderson finally looked up, his eyes full of reproach. Tina Scott, I told you, Emily Harris is my guest. Didn't your mom teach you to be hospitable to guests? As the host, it's only natural I'd cook for her. What's the big deal? Do you really have to make a fuss about it? Are you so petty, even jealous of this? If you're upset about not getting the certificate today, you can just say it. I'll go with you tomorrow to get it. John Anderson's series of impatient words hit me like a heavy blow. I suddenly didn't feel like arguing with him anymore, so I left the kitchen in silence. I didn't even feel like telling him I had no intention of getting the certificate anymore. I walked out of the kitchen and into the living room. Emily Harris was sitting in the living room, seemingly looking for something. When she saw me, she smiled sweetly at me. "Sister-in-law, where's your kettle? I want to boil some hot water." I handed her the kettle, and she went to the kitchen to fill it. It was over 10 minutes before she came out. When she came out, her face was still flushed. Her eyes were full of panic. She hurriedly found a table, placed the kettle on it, and plugged it in. "Sister-in-law, don't misunderstand. John Anderson and I were just discussing some Joseph's Medical Center matters in the kitchen. If nothing had happened to cause misunderstanding, why would she say that in front of me? Isn't this just to make me misunderstand?" I gave a perfunctory nod, too lazy to respond to her. But Emily Harris wasn't going to let it go. After the water in the kettle boiled, she said to me again, "Sister-in-law, could you help me pour the water from the kettle? I'm holding the cup and might burn myself." I didn't want John Anderson to come out and accuse me of not being a good host again, so I decided to endure it for now. I reached out to grab the kettle and began pouring the water into the cup. Unexpectedly, as I was pouring, Emily Harris' hand holding the cup suddenly shook, spilling all the hot water from the cup. Before I could pull the kettle away, the scalding hot water poured directly onto her hand. "Ah, that's so hot." Emily Harris screamed and pulled her hand back. John Anderson rushed out of the kitchen in a hurry. Seeing this, he angrily shouted, "Tina Scott, what are you doing? How could you be so vicious? Don't you know Emily Harris needs her hands to hold a scalpel? What if she gets burned and can't hold a scalpel anymore? Are you ruining her whole life?" John Anderson glared at me coldly for Emily Harris' sake. I pressed my lips together, and my pounding heart slowly grew cold. I looked down at my own hand. When Emily Harris had fumbled with the cup, the spilled water splashed onto my hand as well. Some parts of my hand were also red. But John Anderson didn't see that. He could only see that Emily Harris' hand was burned. "Tina Scott, if Emily Harris can't hold a scalpel anymore, don't even think about getting the certificate with me," John Anderson said through gritted teeth, his eyes red with anger. After saying that, he didn't even look at me, and took Emily Harris to the room to get some ointment. After quickly treating her hand, they rushed off to the St. Joseph's Medical Center for further checks. I looked at the messy kitchen and suddenly felt exhausted. I left the house and went straight to handle my visa. 3 days later, my visa was approved. Emily Harris' injury seemed serious, and John Anderson didn't show me any kindness for 3 days. After receiving the visa, I got a call from John Anderson. "Tina Scott, you still owe Emily Harris an apology. She's kind-hearted and doesn't mind that you accidentally burned her hand, but I can't just let you bully her like this." I calmly replied, "John Anderson, dream on. It was an accident, and I won't apologize." "Okay, you're not going to apologize, huh? Then we're not getting the certificate." John Anderson, in a fit of anger, hung up the phone. I didn't even have time to tell him that I had no intention of getting the certificate anymore. 5 years had made me completely see through John Anderson's character. I looked at the visa in my hand and the suitcase beside me. I took a taxi to the nearest airport and bought a ticket for the fastest flight. After almost 3 hours, The plane finally landed at its destination. When I got off the plane, a tall man in a black coat looked at me. "Excuse me, are you Miss Tina Scott?" he asked politely. I nodded. "I'm a friend of Professor Taylor. He asked me to pick you up and take you to his house. My name is Dr. James Lee." Dr. James Lee politely extended his hand to me. I took his hand and then let go. "Thank you, Mr. Chin." The Professor Taylor Drive James Lee mentioned was also my mentor. I also remembered the name Drive James Lee. He was a senior from 2 years ahead of me, very outstanding, and went abroad for further study after graduating from university. Dr. James Lee took me to Professor Taylor's house. Professor Taylor asked me to add him as a friend for easier communication. He also told me that Dr. James Lee is now an excellent lead surgeon in the field, and his specialty aligns with mine. We added each other as friends and kept in touch from time to time. We each had our own expertise, and while Professor Taylor also studied surgery, he was over 50 and hadn't performed surgery for many years, focusing instead on teaching. He didn't know as much about current clinical practices as Dr. James Lee. Dr. James Lee knew a lot, and whenever I didn't understand something, I would ask him first. I began working tirelessly to fill in the gaps left by the past 5 years, sleeping only 5 hours a day. In the meantime, John Anderson finally noticed something was wrong and messaged me, asking where I had been. I told him, "You don't have to worry about me hurting Emily Harris anymore, and we don't need to get the certificate." John Anderson replied, "What do you mean?" "It means we've broken up." "Tina Scott, you're so bold. You remember, you're the one who said we should break up. Don't come begging me to forgive you and go get the certificate later." "But I still haven't dealt with the Emily Harris situation." "Wherever you are, you have to come back and apologize to her." Seeing the disgusting expression on John Anderson's face, I directly blocked him. But soon, he switched to another phone number and kept calling and texting. I was extremely frustrated. In the end, I went and got a new SIM card. John Anderson's calls could no longer get through. Without his harassment, I focused on my studies. Through Drive James Lee's introduction, I started working as an intern at the St. Joseph's Medical Center where he worked. Dr. James Lee became my mentor, just like John Anderson was to Emily Harris. Under Drive James Lee's guidance, I progressed quickly. In 2 years abroad, I assisted Drive James Lee in many major surgeries and also performed a lot of surgeries myself. Eventually, without Drive James Lee's help, I successfully completed a major surgery on my own. The surgery was a great success, and I became a young and accomplished lead surgeon, second only to Dr. James Lee. This surgery also earned me a good reputation. Having achieved success, I plan to return to my home country with Dr. James Lee. After all, our roots were not abroad. We were always going to return home eventually. But I didn't expect that, after 2 years, John Anderson still hadn't given up on finding me. John Anderson somehow found out that I was back in the country. As soon as I landed, he came to confront me. And he brought Emily Harris with him. 2 years had passed, and John Anderson seemed much more mature. When I was abroad, I often heard about John Anderson's news in the country. I had to admit, even though his character was flawed, he was still very talented as a doctor. In just 2 years, he had become famous in the country. "Tina Scott, you're finally willing to come back. Who is this man next to you?" At first, when he saw only me, John Anderson looked somewhat happy. But when he saw Dr. James Lee standing beside me, his face immediately turned cold. He questioned me. "You went abroad 2 years ago for this man?" Emily Harris, standing next to John Anderson, also chimed in. "Sister-in-law, you left without a word 2 years ago." John Anderson couldn't sleep for a while and drowned his sorrows in alcohol. "John Anderson loves you so much. How could you do this to him?" Emily Harris' eyes were sparkling with tears as she spoke. "I thought it was my fault that made you misunderstand and leave, but I didn't expect. You found a new lover and want to abandon John Anderson." After hearing Emily Harris' words, John Anderson's face darkened even more. But he held back his anger, only giving Drive James Lee a cold glare before saying to me, "Tina Scott, now that you're back, you must apologize to Emily Harris for what happened. Also, if you realize your mistake and break up with this man beside you, we can still be together. I can forgive you for the mistakes you made." John Anderson's words made me laugh in anger. I really didn't know where he got the confidence from, still thinking I was just angry with him. "John Anderson, I told you 2 years ago, we've already broken up. Back then, you even said not to come back and beg for your forgiveness. But now, Who's the one harassing whom? I didn't tell you that I came back, and yet you're here, with your good apprentice Emily Harris. You and Emily Harris are always together, so who's the one cheating? Don't project your own filth onto others. As I was rebutting John Anderson, Dr. James Lee suddenly pulled me by the arm, turning me to face him. He placed a gentle kiss on my forehead. Then he looked at John Anderson. Sir, I met Tina Scott only 2 years ago, and you two had already broken up by then. Even if during this time we developed feelings for each other and something happened between us, it's none of your business, is it? In my opinion, someone as excellent as Tina Scott deserves to be loved and cared for, and you don't deserve her. I was stunned by Dr. James Lee's actions. When I looked at him, he leaned close to my ear, and I could feel his warm breath. I'm sorry, your ex-boyfriend seems a bit difficult, but I only wanted to help you. I smiled at him, signaling that it was fine. John Anderson, seeing Drive, James Lee kiss my forehead, instantly lost his temper. Damn it, how dare you touch her? He charged at Drive, James Lee, ready to punch him in the face. I noticed his movement and quickly pushed Drive, James Lee aside, standing in front of him. John Anderson's movement was forced to stop. He looked at me in disbelief. You're actually protecting him? Why would I protect you, this piece of trash? I stared at him coldly, my disgust clearly visible, hurting John Anderson's eyes. This was the first time he saw such emotion in my eyes. You hate me? He murmured. Isn't that obvious? I don't love you anymore. Once I stopped loving you, everything you do just disgusts me. I pulled Drive, James Lee back and took a step away. John Anderson stared at me, his eyes red, his voice hoarse. Are you really going to give up on being with me for him? I'm telling you, Tina Scott, everything he can give you, I can give you too, and I'll be better than him. Wait and see, I'll prove it to you. After speaking, John Anderson angrily left, with Emily Harris hurriedly following behind. John Anderson, wait for me, Dr. James Lee was well known both domestically and internationally, and John Anderson clearly knew who he was. He was firmly convinced that I chose Drive, James Lee because I thought he was better than John Anderson. But that's just what he thought. I finally sighed in relief as I watched him leave. After returning to the country, I planned to settle down first. Once I was settled in, I started preparing to find a job. At this time, Dr. James Lee also sent me a message. The best street, Joseph's Medical Center in the capital has extended an olive branch to us. Do you want to go together? The best street, Joseph's Medical Center in the capital was the first street, Joseph's Medical Center. The best surgical department in the country was in the first street, Joseph's Medical Center. Just like Tsinghua and Peking University are the dreams of most students, the first street, Joseph's Medical Center was the same for me. It was as if Dr. James Lee could always guess exactly what I wanted. The things he said and did not only met my expectations, but also gave me immense help. Let's go. Thank you, Dr. James Lee. With excitement and joy in my heart, I agreed right away. When we arrived in the capital and reported to the first street, Joseph's Medical Center, we found out that John Anderson was also here. The first street, Joseph's Medical Center likes to recruit all the best doctors, and of course, John Anderson is included. When I saw him, I frowned. Dr. James Lee didn't expect this either, and he looked at me apologetically. Sorry, I didn't expect he'd be here. It's fine, just pretend he doesn't exist. This isn't your fault, it's my choice to come here, I reassured him. After getting familiar with the place, I relaxed when I saw that Emily Harris wasn't around. Thankfully, one troublesome person was enough, and not two. With Emily Harris' abilities, she wouldn't meet the standards to get into the first street, Joseph's Medical Center anyway. Thinking this made me feel much lighter. For the past 2 years, Dr. James Lee and I had been both mentor and friend, initially as teacher and student, now as partners. Our mutual understanding had reached the point where we could tell what the other was thinking with just a glance. The first street, Joseph's Medical Center was an unfamiliar environment for us, and in this new place, I felt more comfortable going to and from work with Dr. James Lee, having meals together. Almost everyone thought we were a couple, and even when I explained, they didn't believe it. Dr. James Lee and Tina Scott really seem like a perfect match. Both surgeons, always together. I really wouldn't believe it if there wasn't something going on. They're both so capable, a power couple. They're perfect for each other. Several nurses from the surgical department gathered together gossiping, and as they passed, John Anderson overheard them, which only fueled his anger. Whether you believe it or not, These two, perfectly matched, people aren't anything good. Especially this drive. James Lee, seducing someone else's wife. What kind of hero is that? He couldn't hold back anymore and shouted at the nurses. Startled by John Anderson's sudden loud voice, the nurses froze. The once quiet street, Joseph's Medical Center, was now filled with the sound of John Anderson shouting, drawing the attention of everyone around. I heard John Anderson's voice from the office and walked out, giving him a cold stare. It's working hours. The Saint Joseph's Medical Center doesn't allow loud noise. Doctor, shoo, don't you understand this basic rule? Also, slandering people without evidence is illegal. John Anderson's face turned ashen with anger, and he blurted, am I wrong? If it weren't for him seducing you abroad, we would have gotten the certificate long ago. And we've already had the wedding ceremony. He's been with you every day. How is that not seducing someone else's wife? His words shocked everyone, and they stared at me and John Anderson in disbelief. Many people gasped, their eyes shining with gossip. I felt my face turn completely cold. Since John Anderson insisted on airing our dirty laundry in front of everyone, I had no reason to hold back. I had originally hoped to treat him as a stranger and maintain some face. Now, there was no need to hold back. John Anderson, we've been planning our wedding ceremony for 5 years, but in those 5 years, we went to the county clerk's office 66 times, and every time, you canceled last minute because of some emergency. Every time, it was because of your female intern, one phone call from her, and you'd rush off to cancel our registration. I looked at John Anderson, my gaze cold as ice. People around us, who had been eavesdropping on the gossip, began to change the way they looked at him. Just 3 days before I left for abroad, we were at the county clerk's office, and once again, you left because of your dear apprentice, scolding me in the process. You were at the St. Joseph's Medical Center dealing with a family issue, and you took her home, cooking for her that day. I sneered. We broke up 2 years ago, and only after we broke up did Dr. James Lee become my mentor. We have nothing going on, but you, John Anderson, had a wedding ceremony with me and still got involved with your apprentice. John Anderson stood there, trembling, his chest heaving with anger, unable to utter a word of rebuttal. Seeing this, the people around us couldn't be more clear. How shameless, looking like a decent person, and I even secretly liked him. Girls, make sure you open your eyes next time. Dr. Tina Scott really picked the wrong person. The gossip intensified as more and more people started talking. John Anderson couldn't take it anymore and fled the scene in disgrace. His bad reputation began to spread like wildfire in the First Street, Joseph's Medical Center. I thought that with this, John Anderson would finally give up and leave me alone. But I didn't expect that while James Lee and I were on a business trip abroad, things would take another turn. The St. Joseph's Medical Center received a patient in critical condition who needed surgery. However, John Anderson had sent the patient to the department he worked in. When we returned, the head nurse from that department rushed to us, looking panicked. Dr. Chin, Dr. Sue, something big happened. After getting the details, both James Lee and I were alarmed. John Anderson had kept a patient who was supposed to be transferred to surgery in the internal medicine department. What was he trying to do? We exchanged a glance and, without stepping into the surgery department, turned toward John Anderson's internal medicine department. John Anderson, as the attending physician in internal medicine, had kept a patient needing surgery there. Was he out of his mind? When we found John Anderson, he was in the patient's room, speaking softly to the patient. Seeing us, his smile immediately faded. May I help you? He sneered, his tone condescending. I didn't feel like wasting time with him and directly addressed the situation. This patient was supposed to be transferred to our surgery department, with surgery scheduled for this afternoon. Why have you kept her in internal medicine? Upon hearing this, John Anderson sneered again. What am I supposed to do? Of course, I'm here to help the patient. I'm her attending physician. He cast a disdainful glance at James Lee, standing next to me, and said, even if this patient were sent to your surgery department, in the end, isn't James Lee the one who'll be operating? In my opinion, I'm better suited to perform the surgery than him. I looked at him with fury, took a deep breath to calm myself. You're playing with the patient's life. John Anderson, are you really going to go this far just to spite James Lee? This is no joke. It's a real human life. If you mess up the surgery, are you prepared to take responsibility? I tried to speak calmly. Stop being so stubborn. Let us take over this patient's care. But apparently, My words hit a nerve. He mocked me with a smirk. Tina Scott, after 5 years together, you still don't trust me to handle this surgery? I can agree to this, but only if you agree to get back together with me and go get the certificate tomorrow. Otherwise, this matter is non-negotiable. Seeing John Anderson's firm attitude, I had no choice but to deal with the patient directly. But the patient was an elderly woman in her 60s. She trusted John Anderson completely. She insisted, I trust Drive. Shu to treat me. You don't need to worry about it. The surgery was scheduled urgently for 2 p.m. It was already 11 a.m. John Anderson didn't seem concerned that the patient might agree to transfer to us. He simply left the room. Dr. James Lee and I stayed in the room, trying to convince her for an hour and a half without success. At 12:30 p.m., Dr. James Lee rubbed his forehead and said, Ting Ting, let's go eat. We'll come back after lunch to check on her. We can go in when the surgery starts if we need to. Dr. James Lee's suggestion made sense, and it seemed to be the only way forward. John Anderson was so hostile toward Drive James Lee that he refused to transfer the patient to us. The patient was too trusting of John Anderson and wouldn't agree to move departments. After lunch, we returned to review the patient's test results. Just looking at the data, Dr. James Lee frowned. This patient's condition is quite serious. The average success rate for the surgery is only 50%. I froze, worried, and asked, if you perform the surgery, what's the success rate? Only 70%. Hearing there was still a 70% chance of success, I felt a little relieved. But if John Anderson doesn't do the surgery properly and I end up doing it, I'll only have a 60% chance. I pressed my lips together and murmured, let's hope for the best. Time passed slowly, and soon it was time for the surgery. But just as we were about to enter the operating room, John Anderson blocked our way. He said expressionlessly, only authorized personnel are allowed inside. The nurses standing by also blocked us from entering. We were left helplessly watching as the doors to the operating room closed. Outside the operating room, there were only Drive, James Lee, me, the patient's son and daughter-in-law, and 2 daughters. About 3 hours later, the red light on the operating room was still on. The patient's children began to get anxious. How much longer? Why aren't they out yet? Didn't they say it would only take 2.5 hours? The nurse standing by tried to comfort them. Don't worry, it will be over soon, just a little longer. You always say, soon, it's all lies. If anything happens to my mom, I'll never let you get away with it. The son glared fiercely at the nurse. Exactly, can't you be more reliable? Give us a straight answer. Can you cure my mom or not? The 2 daughters also stared at the nurse, dissatisfied. I didn't care to watch them argue, focusing only on the red light outside the operating room. The worry in my heart hadn't eased, and the bad feeling was growing stronger. Suddenly, the door to the operating room opened, and John Anderson stumbled out, his face pale and his mind scattered. He said, the patient's had massive bleeding. She can't be saved. Everyone's face turned white at the words. You quack. What nonsense are you talking? How could my mom have a problem? You failed the surgery, killed my mom. I'll make you pay for this. The son, eyes red with anger, rushed forward, ready to punch John Anderson. The nurses around quickly grabbed him, trying to hold him back. Call security. We have family members causing a scene. The whole hallway erupted into chaos. My premonition turned out to be right. Dr. James Lee and I exchanged glances, and after taking a deep breath, I quietly said, I'll go. You stay here and calm the family. I'll do my best. I nodded, biting my lip to keep my composure. Dr. James Lee changed into his surgical gown and went back inside. The operating room door closed once again. Family, please stay calm. We've brought in a doctor with better expertise to handle the emergency. Please trust us. Give us some more time. I rushed over to the agitated family members, raising my voice. Then tell me, will my mom be okay or not? Tell me. The attention shifted to me, and the son's furious glare met mine. I took a deep breath and said, we have a 60% chance of success with the surgery. Please rest assured, we will do everything we can to save your mother. Hearing this, he seemed to calm down a little. But then, while everyone was distracted, he threw a punch at John Anderson's face. You quack, you said you could save my mom. I trusted you with her, and now look what's happened. If my mom doesn't make it, I won't let you off. The nurses around us finally sighed with relief. 2 more hours passed. Finally, the surgery was over. The operating room door opened, and Dr. James Lee, exhausted, walked out, his face tired but his tone full of relief. It's a success. The surgery was successful. We'll take the patient to the recovery room. After a month of rest, she can be discharged. As soon as he said that, I felt the tension in my body relax. Thank God. Thank you, doctor. If it weren't for you, my mom would have been in danger. Yes, thank you so much. The son rushed up, gratefully shaking James Lee's hand, and the daughter-in-law was also relieved, thanking him as well. The other two daughters were so happy they cried. It's all right. It's all right. After the surgery was over, the patient's family sent a flower basket and a letter of thanks to Dr. James Lee, but they also directly reported John Anderson to the St. Joseph's Medical Center for lacking medical ethics, demanding an explanation. The St. Joseph's Medical Center director was alerted by the complaint. Dr. James Lee and I reported the situation truthfully. In the end, John Anderson was fired. The family, in gratitude to Dr. James Lee, even went to the media and paid for a report. Of course, they also reported John Anderson's misdeeds. Soon, John Anderson was subjected to online abuse, criticized and insulted by everyone. He became the most despised person, the rat everyone wanted to hit. No Street Joseph's Medical Center dared to employ him, even though his medical skills were top-notch. If any Street Joseph's Medical Center hired him, they'd be drowned in online criticism. In a short time, the once prestigious John Anderson became despondent and reclusive. He tried to contact Emily Harris, but found out that after hearing about his online abuse, she immediately moved out and left the capital. When he called, his tone was desperate. I know you love me. Will you be with me? I have no one left but you. Emily Harris' tone was cold as she responded. John Anderson, I like you and I'm grateful for your help, but I won't be foolish like Tina Scott and drag myself down for a useless man. Love alone can't fill the stomach. Don't call me again. With that, she hung up the phone and blocked him. John Anderson laughed and cried, finally realizing that what Emily Harris liked was his status and position, not him. Only I had truly loved him. He shakily dialed my number, his eyes red and his voice choked. Ting ting. I regret it. I was wrong. I shouldn't have said so many hurtful things to you because of Emily Harris. I shouldn't have done all those things to hurt you. I now realize that you were the one who truly cared for me, and Emily Harris was just pretending. She never really cared. I was wrong. Will you come back? I promise I'll treat you well for the rest of my life. I listened to John Anderson's confession on the phone, calmly replying, we're long past that. The moment I decided to go abroad, the Tina Scott who loved you was gone. You killed her with your own hands. After saying that, I hung up the phone. John Anderson never called again. Not long after, I heard that John Anderson had started drinking heavily day and night, spiraling into despair. He even started harming his own hand. He could no longer hold a scalpel. Due to his self-destructive behavior and the recurrence of his old illness, he was left bedridden, unable to work. I smiled faintly, no longer interested in hearing more. His life had nothing to do with me anymore. Once the online abuse surrounding John Anderson was over, Dr. James Lee took me to a restaurant after work one day. He had set up a romantic candlelit dinner, holding a bouquet of bright red roses, and confessed to me. Ting ting, I like you. Would you give me a chance? I looked at James Lee, silent for a moment. Eventually, seeing his hopeful gaze, I shook my head. Sorry, I don't want to date or get married right now. Right now, I want to continue pursuing my dream of becoming a great doctor, dedicating all my energy to the career I love. Dr. James Lee looked a bit sad, but also relieved, as if he had expected this answer. I guessed you wouldn't agree, but I wanted to try, to see if, after John Anderson, I had a chance. I looked at him and sighed. We've known each other for over 2 years, and I've already come to see you as a friend and family. Sorry. Dr. James Lee gently patted my head and smiled. You don't have to apologize. Feelings can't be forced. I respect your decision. But if, in the future, you ever think about love or marriage, would you consider me first? I chuckled softly. Okay, I promise. If that day comes, I will consider you. But for now, I am focused on the path I love, moving forward with no regrets. The clouds have cleared, and the road ahead is full of sunshine.